Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode. I hope you guys are doing great. I know it's been quite a while since I've uploaded a new video, and I kind of wanted to talk about that before I got into today's video. So I think the last video I posted was probably like 5-6 months ago. So I apologize for that, but part of the reason why was because just this last hunting season wasn't that great. It was just a lot of, I tried to film, I tried to make a lot of videos, tried to share the experience and share the failures and successes with you guys, but there was not a whole lot of successful content. I mean, it just wasn't there. I did have a couple encounters where I had some deer come in, but they were not like a little buck. Wasn't gonna shoot the little buck, but I had a shot at a really big buck, mature buck. Was unable to find that deer. So a lot of the videos that I made were just me like this, just saying, hey, I have another update for you. And I didn't want to bore you guys with those videos of just constant updates, because there was, like I said, nothing really eventful happened. I think I only shot one deer this last year. I shot at, well, let me rephrase that. I shot 3 deer, was only able to recover 1, and the other 2 I could never find, which is very, very disappointing. But like I said, that's part of the reason why I hadn't posted a video in a while. I will say I learned a lot from this last hunting season. And if you guys don't know, I bow hunt, primarily bow hunt, and after the season that I had this past year, I started messing around with my bow, changing different things like that. I figured I'd just make a video and kind of talk with you about some of the things that I've done and changed on my bow setup. And I hope you guys enjoy these videos. I hope you guys enjoy this video. And if you guys are new to the channel or coming back for the first time, thank you. And if you're new to the channel, if you're new to the channel, definitely hit the subscribe button and hit the hit the notification bell to get updates on when I post new videos. And I hope you guys are having a great time this year. I hope if you guys are out fishing, whatever outdoor activities you guys are doing, you guys are having a blast at it. But anyway, so today's video, I'm going to be talking about, archery equipment. Some of the things that I have been changing on here. So I switched from a wrist release to a thumb button. Also, I've added a stabilizer. I think this is an 11-inch stabilizer, 10-inch, 11-inch stabilizer. And I added, I think it comes standard with 2 ounces of weights, and I added 3 more, so I've got 5 ounces of weight on the front here. Essentially what that's going to do is help when you're at full draw with oscillation. So when you have your pins on the target, you'll see the pins on the target will kind of move. Sometimes they do, I think they'll like figure 8. Sometimes they'll do like a little U shape. Essentially what it does is help slow that down, so that way you can get your timing really good. It especially helps in longer distance shots. At 20 yards, you're not going to notice a huge difference on there, but when you get out to like 40 plus yards, you'll start to see a pretty big difference. I know for me, I could see a huge difference. But I will also make a separate video on this as well, kind of explaining the difference in stabilizers and stuff like that. But like I said, today's video, the meat and potatoes, we're going to be talking about the sights. So I also picked up this black gold mountain light Ascent sight, and it is an adjustable sight. It's a 3-pin sight. They make them in 3 pins and 5 pins, and you can also get on Black Gold's website and customize them, change the pin colors and all that other stuff. As well as I think you could change like pin diameter. But I decided to go with this one because I'm coming from this, I don't know if you can see, True Glow 5-pin sight right here. There is a little light on the top here. When I first bought my bow, this is the sight that I bought, and I ended up just buying it because it was really, really cheap. It was very inexpensive, but it did the job for the last 6 years of me shooting it. I haven't had any issues with it, except for more recently, I've noticed that even with this light, putting new batteries in it and stuff, these fiber optic pins were just really dim. Even in like clear blue skies, bright sunny day, they were still really hard to see. And I'm not sure exactly why. I took this little housing piece off. There's this little clear housing piece, and thought maybe it was just because there was like dirt contaminants or particles that were on the outside of those fiber optic pins. They're like in a clear sleeve. I thought maybe there's some dirt on there, so I'd clean it. I did that, still didn't work. And I was just having a hard time seeing the pins at further distance. But I thought it was time for a change. And then after those pins started kind of going dim, I started looking into different sights that I'd be interested in. One of the main reasons why I decided to switch from a 5-pin to a 3-pin is because, and I don't know if you guys will be able to see this, there's just a lot of noise in that. There's a lot to look at when you're looking at your target and downrange. You got to look through your pins and everything like that. Versus, and I hope you guys can see this one here, this one right here, right? There's only 3 pins inside of that housing, so it clears up a lot of space for me. And I still wanted to have the ability to just like look at the pins and go, okay, well that one's 20 yards, that one's 30 yards, that one's 40 yards. And so I can leave it set up for, that's most of what I've, in the range that I've been hunting at is 20, 30, and 40 yards. But then I also wanted to be able to adjust it out to further distances as needed. And that's the one thing with this here, you can adjust it. So you can actually turn this dial here and it moves the whole sight into a lower position. And essentially what it's going to do is create further distance. At some point these will bottom out, but you won't be able to get, what I mean by bottom out is you won't be able to go further than a certain distance. Everybody's setup is going to be different, so I can't say how it's going to affect your setup versus somebody else's, but at some point you're going to run out of space. The other reason I went with this is, like I said, because I could adjust this sight, and I wanted to be able to shoot 80, 90, 100 yards. And one of the big reasons why is because I have heard that the further you shoot comfortably, the easier the shots are closer up. So if the longest shot that I want to get comfortable at taking is like shooting, you know, like hunting at is 40 yards, and I shoot a target at 80 yards and get really good groupings at 80 yards, when it comes time to shoot a 40-yard target, whether it be a 3D target, an archery block, or in a hunting setting, those 40-yard shots are going to be way more effective and efficient because I'm going to have put the practice in and the time in to make sure that I feel comfortable and confident enough to shoot those distances. The other reason was because, like I said, you could create the sight tape. Not every bow sight that you're going to get is going to be able to have one of these through Archer's Advantage, where you can actually create the sight tapes. So when you get an adjustable sight, most of them, I don't know of any that don't come with this, but most of them will come with these little sight tapes that are from the factory that they print with them. So this one has, let's see, 1, 2, 3 sheets, and they're all going to vary. Let me put this down real quick here so I can kind of show you this. All of these sight tapes are going to vary, very similar to this, but like this one right here is, I think it's 313 feet per second. So if you can see these, the yardages, the 20, 30, 40, 50 through 60, they're really close together because you're shooting a faster bow through here versus one of these sight tapes on the last page. Like this one here is 20 through 100 yards, but the gaps are a lot further apart. One of the other reasons why I wanted to make this video is because one of the issues that I had with this, which is, it's not really an issue, it's something that you could fix, but sometimes when you're creating these sight tapes, you won't be able to get all of the distance out of the sight tape or the wheel. And one of the reasons for that is because, I'll go ahead and grab an arrow to show you this. So when you put an arrow in here, right, on your D-loop, I'll do it without poking myself here. When you put an arrow in here in your D-loop, right, and your arrow rest is at full draw, I don't know if you guys can see the gap between the bottom of this housing here. Let me see here. I'm trying to do this one-handed. But if you can see the gap from here to here at full draw, even though right now it's set at like 60 yards on the top pin, what you end up running into is if you bottom this out all the way, you run the risk of your arrow coming through there. You see how that gap closed up a lot? and your vanes will actually hit the bottom of this, and your arrow won't be as accurate, or it'll fly funny, or you won't hit your target at all. It'll actually miss the target. So that's something to pay attention to. When I originally set this thing up, it was a lot lower than that, and there was no way. Like, my goal was to be able to shoot at 115, 120 yards, and right now, the way it's set up, my bottom pin is at 115 yards, and I have not ever shot that distance yet, so I don't really know if I'm gonna have the clearance for it. One of the things that I've heard that you can do is measure the height of the bottom of one of these vanes to the top of whatever vane you're shooting, and then measure the distance from your arrow shaft at full draw on the bottom of this. If it's bigger than that, it should work. Not guaranteed, because the moment the arrow flies out of the bow, it's gonna compress and flex, and so there's a possibility that it'll compress and flex and still smack the snot out of the sight. But anyway, so that's one way to do it. The other way is just shoot it and see, and at your own risk. But I don't think I'm gonna be able to shoot 115 yards. 80 yards was plenty for me so far. I still want to get better at it. I think last time I shot 80 yards, it was only the second time I shot it, but I lost one arrow shooting at 80 yards because the slightest like movement or anything will throw the shot off, and you're talking even the like quarter of an inch at 80 yards is insane. But anyway, so like I said, that was one of the issues that I had when I first set this up, was my pins inside of this housing were up a lot higher. And so whenever I tried to bottom it out, I would bottom it out, but I was not gonna get the clearance. I think by the time I didn't even bottom it out, let me rephrase that. Because the pins were higher up in the sight housing, I would only make it to about 90 yards on the bottom pin, or the bottom indicator, and it would be too low. And I scoured the internet to try and figure out a solution to be able to gain more distance out of this dial. And one of the things that I came up with after the hundreds of videos that I watched was these pins inside of this sight housing here were actually really high up. And the way to get more distance out, so you don't bottom it out too early, I say bottom it out, where you don't run out of space too early, is to lower these pins down in the sight housing, right? And then when you set it up, you'll have to adjust the sight. You'll actually have to move this whole thing up, which will give you more clearance when you do happen to adjust this sight down to the further distances, 90 plus yards and stuff. Every setup is going to be different, so you might not get the full 120 yards or 100 yards out of your sight tape. It just depends on how fast you're shooting, your draw weight, all of those things that play into your feet per second overall kind of play into this. But that was pretty much the only thing that took me a little bit to figure out. I will say that if you happen to do what I did and drop the pins in the sight house, or these pins, and lower them down into the sight housing here, like I said, make sure you bring this up, but you're gonna have to reset up your 20-yard pin, or your 20 yards. You're gonna have to resight it in again. So the easiest thing I can tell you guys is, when you buy one of these sights, one of the first things you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna dial it all the way up, because usually they'll come like this, where it's pretty much in the middle. You're gonna wanna turn this dial until it looks somewhat like that, where it's as high as it possibly can go. And one of the reasons why is because it's gonna allow you to get further distance when you're trying to dial or use this sight tape. If you end up just running the 20 through 100 yard, you're gonna be more likely to hit that 100-yard pin if it's up here. If it's down here like this, like it is when it comes from out of the box, my indicator now is at 60 yards. I hope you can see that right there. It's at 60 yards. And so that means my 20-yard pin, when I sight my bow in, is going to be where that 60-yard marker is now. And right now, if I were to do that, I would lose my 20 through 60, pretty much, my 20 through 50, and wouldn't be able to shoot those distances. I would still be able to shoot those distances, but I wouldn't be able to get past, like, it would be 20, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. I would probably get 80 yards out of it, which is still not terrible. But if you're trying to push that distance, you want to go ahead and dial that all the way up. Set your 20-yard pin there, and then you can go ahead and make your sight tape and do all that stuff. So something to think about when you're setting this up, to make sure that you maximize the distance that you are able to shoot at. I think I covered everything. If you guys have been thinking about getting one of these, I highly recommend them. Do your research, get on the internet, go to your pro shops, whatever, and look at the different variations. They make them in 3 pins, 5 pins. You can get on Black Gold's site if you want to look at this site in particular and custom make one where you can do different, there's just a bunch of different things that you can do. I'm not even going to get into all the things that you can customize on these. Go do your research, check them out, and definitely don't be intimidated by getting one. I actually love this. Here in a couple months, I'll probably get a new bow, and when I do, I'm probably going to run the same site because I like it so much. So anyway, I hope that you guys learned something, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the thumbs up button to let me know you guys liked it. If you happen to pick one of these sites up, or a site, an adjustable site like this where you can dial it, drop a comment down below, let me know what site you got, and let me know how you guys like it. If you guys have any questions on these, I'll do my best to answer any questions, but drop those down in the comment section below. And I hope you guys are having fun and enjoying the outdoors and staying safe. And we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.